Welcome, one and all, to Liberty After Dark live stream. We hope that you enjoy the show and will engage in the conversation along with us. So, without further ado, here's your host, Christian Moore.
What is up, ladies and gents? Welcome to Liberty After Dark. I am Christian, and I am, as always, a little bit behind schedule and trying to finish things up as the show starts. So, how is everybody doing? Hope you guys are all having an awesome time. I promise that I have more stuff done than I usually do, so just give me a second. What's up, Scott Peterson? I've seen David is making his rounds. I'm going to host you on Twitch. Thanks, bro. Yeah, I appreciate that. Also, to the 40 some odd new subscribers that we've gotten since the last stream, welcome to any of you who show up for this. I hope you enjoy our regular content. We will definitely be doing more of the debates in the future. I think that was the single most... Oh, by the way, I'm pouring a drink for myself. So, no, there's no alcohol in this. It's all just soda. So, while I pour this... yeah, it was the most successful we've ever had for Liberty After Dark. It never hits the corner perfectly. Yeah, never. Yeah, so where was I? Jeez, I'm all scrambled in the brain now. Yeah, so it was the most successful we've ever been, and something that I realized that I don't think I ever... Thanks for the host, by the way, Liberty Late Night. I don't think I ever said anything about this. Is that I'd have to go back. I'd need someone to go back for me at this point and look. But I'm pretty sure we've got to be past the 1 year mark for Liberty After Dark. I know that we started posting podcast episodes. I can tell you this for a fact. Give me 1 second. I had it open just a second ago. Our first episode, which, you know, man, that was a... Yeah, okay, so our first episode was posted February 5th. So, February 5th, 2019, which was... I mean, we did that, like, freaking... That was like 3 shows ago. That was our 1 year birthday. And I didn't even know it. That was our 1 year of actually uploading stuff to the podcast. And I guess if you want to be really technical, episode 1 was on February 20th and episode 2 was on February 23rd. I encourage you to just go listen to a little bit of that. Man, it is night and day compared to how it is now. I mean, I didn't really expect it to be that different because I felt like I had a pretty good grasp of how to do this kind of content before I even started, but man, yeah, I mean, it's been a while. Because I think really January is when I started streaming to Liberty Memes, the Patreon group. I think that's when I started doing that. And yeah, I mean, we took a break in October because I was moving countries, and it was just good to take a break, honestly. Came back in December, and now we've been posting pretty regularly, at least a few a month. I mean, I've got a backlog. I'm 3 episodes behind now. It's just every time that I want to sit down and start editing. Like, I did a bunch of editing on last night, but I still didn't finish. I mean, I've got like 5 hours of content to edit. It's a lot. So I think what's probably going to have to happen is eventually I'm just going to have to start taking these live streams and just ripping them, putting some effects on them so that they sound better for just audio listening, and then just shipping it out. Because a lot of times I cut out some of the fluff, or if I have breaks or something, but I don't know. I think I may have to, I don't know, I have to come up with something. Like, maybe I need a program that I can make a timestamp every time I like press the plus key or something that I never touch whenever I'm doing this show. And that would probably help a lot, honestly, with being able to cut out the nonsense, because basically I have to listen to my own show multiple times, sometimes, unless it's really long, and then I just kind of listen through once, hope I get everything, and then ship it. Especially if I have guests on, I'm always really making sure that those episodes are really high quality for the guests more than really even for me. Just because I want to make sure that they are presented well and that I am presented well. And yeah, you get those two things together, and sometimes they don't always work out very well. So yeah, it's just, that's part of the deal. So I think we are just about good to go. I'm closing out some tabs that we aren't going to use for this, so that it doesn't eat up any of my memory. We have no drop frames, so the second I switch over here, we are going to start up the show for real. I'll do the introduction and everything. And yeah, Toby says you definitely are. I became active mid-February 2019. So yeah, I think it's definitely over a year now. It's probably like a year and almost a month. So that's crazy. I mean, like I said, I've done podcasting in the past, but very, very rarely do most shows make it to a year. So that's pretty cool, man. It's pretty cool. Let's see here. Okay. That's a little dim. Let me fix something real quick, and then you guys should be. We'll press. Because right now I feel like it's taking a little bit too much of y'all's text out from the fade. And I want to make sure everybody can see the chat, but it could also just be the fact that I'm super overanalyzing how this thing looks. I think it looks all right. Oh, thank you, Caleb, by the way. I decided that if I'm going to pretend to be a pretentious douchebag that enjoys talking about philosophy and politics, I might as well dress like one. So, actually, I think that looks better, almost. Cool. Yeah, we'll just do that for now. I kind of like it. Cool. Cool. All right, so we've got a little bit of news, but I need to start this show officially, so I'm going to top my drink off because I finished off a little bit because I had way too much ice in here. And then we're gonna get going for realsies. Thanks for everybody who came out early. I mean, you didn't come out early, you came out on time. I just wasn't prepared, and I decided to talk instead of finish preparing, so sorry for holding you over for 8 minutes from actual content. But if you guys have any sort of questions or anything you want to talk about, today's the perfect day for that, because I don't have any like highly prepared content for you guys today. I'm working on some stuff for next week. I got some more research to do, some more writing that I'm doing. But let me make sure that I start recording in Audacity because now that I have this music on here, I have to make sure that I start recording on a separate program so that the music doesn't get brought over to the podcast, because all of this music is safe for Twitch and YouTube, but really podcasting is they're very picky about you having music. Hello, Night Mary, you came just in time. We're about to start. Okay. And cool. All right. How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to Liberty After Dark. My name is Christian. Today is February 22nd, 2020, and I guess I'll just go ahead and get this out of the way for all of you guys in the podcast. I've already been talking about it with some of the live folks here, which, if you haven't been a part of the live streams, you really need to come over here. About how the show is actually broken a year, and I didn't even realize it. It's been so long at this point that I kind of forgot that the show is over a year old now, and so that's pretty cool. So yeah, we were kind of talking about that a little bit while I was getting some things set up over on this end. So we'll go ahead and we'll just go straight into the news now. I'm not going to take up too much of your time talking about that, but yeah, cool stuff. We've got at minimum 1 year. I think it's actually a little bit over that. 1 year since we started posting actual episodes. So yeah, Mazel Tov for lad. Thanks, Celeste. It's good to see you out here. So the biggest news is that the Nevada caucus is over and Bernie Sanders wins. Okay, so what is the big deal about Bernie Sanders winning? Bernie Sanders is like a guy expected to win all of these things, right? So the biggest thing about the Nevada caucus is it's the first state really in the South that we're getting a glimpse at as far as voting is concerned. And actually, we're going to have the South Carolina caucus here pretty soon, I'm pretty sure. I can actually tell you in about 2 seconds as I pull up all of this information live. And it's actually, yeah, it's going to be in 6 days is the South Carolina. So between Nevada and South Carolina, we're going to have a pretty good idea of how the rest of these caucuses, including probably Super Tuesday, we can get some ideas of how these things are going to go. So some key takeaways. Biden wins, which is actually kind of surprising. A lot of people expected, well, okay, it's surprising if you just look at polling, which you obviously should not do in 2020. But what's interesting about the Nevada caucus is that Elizabeth Warren and Joe Biden were expected to do a lot better in the caucus than they did. Elizabeth Warren probably had one of her better showings than, which is crazy to think because a neighboring state to her home state, she did very, very poorly in. But I think it gives you an interesting lens into what's going on and how much of a movement Sanders is building behind him. I'm sure you guys have heard, but Bernie Sanders' campaign was notified by the White House that the Russians are attempting to aid him in his campaign, which I think is basically slang for we're going to go ahead and sabotage your campaign for you right now. It's Bernie Sanders. If Bernie Sanders had a rough run in 2016, he is setting himself up for quite possibly one of the most uphill battles in election history in the United States of America. Definitely not putting himself in a position to, and it's not even his fault, but he's definitely not putting himself in a position to succeed here. Yeah, so out of the votes, right, the Nevada caucus results, I should have set up a screen so I could show you guys this stuff. But we've got Bernie Sanders at 45%, Joe Biden coming in at the 19% mark, which he's supposed to do a lot better than that in this state. Pete Buttigieg, again, Pete Buttigieg in the top 3. Never would have guessed in a million years if you had asked me 3-4 weeks ago if Pete would be up here. Never in a million years. 16%. And Elizabeth Warren at 12%. And the only one who got any delegates was Bernie, which puts him 12 delegates ahead when he was already leading in the polls. So I think he's got a double-digit lead now at this point. Or sorry, not in the polls, but in the primaries. Now, super delegates always have the ability to completely screw, well, for lack of a better word, screw up this entire system that they have built here. But I think it's something to keep in mind and to watch out for, that as we keep moving through the caucuses, things are going to, they're going to stay pretty spicy, honestly. They're going to stay pretty spicy. I'm going to be keeping a closer eye on it for sure. Nevada, I didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to just because of the timing, but I definitely will be paying attention to South Carolina, because that's going to be, if Joe Biden has any chance of coming with any more than the barest number of delegates, he's got to show that he can perform in these southern states. Because if he can't win South Carolina, that means he may not be able to win Alabama. It means he may not be able to win Tennessee. It means he may not be able to win all these southern states that he's supposed to win. So if he can't win any of those, I mean, who are they going to go to? Warren? Most likely not. So, yeah, I mean, it's, man, this is shaking itself up to be quite the election season. And, you know, I didn't really care about the primaries at all. Well, that's not true. I didn't care as much about the primaries in 2016. I think they were kind of fun to watch, a couple of the debates. I think seeing some of the sick burns, quote unquote, from post-debate coverage was probably better than actually trying to watch the whole thing. But I mean, the same thing is true for these Democratic debates. But I think now that I understand how the system works better, it's easier for me to sit and enjoy watching all of the things that are going on. And for those of you who don't know, to kind of wrap up the news a little bit, we did a live coverage of the Democratic debate. So if you haven't watched Bloomberg's debut onto the Democratic stage, you definitely should go check that out, because I think it was a pretty good live stream. Again, the best performing Liberty After Dark anything ever. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I think it was pretty good content, honestly. And I don't say that very often. So most of the time I'm actually dogging on my own stuff. So we'll see. But yeah. Other than that, though, I think that's pretty much it for the news. Unless you guys have any news, like I said earlier in the show, if you guys have any questions or anything you want to talk about, now's a pretty good time to do it. I've got a couple of news things that I want to talk about from some people that I know. But this is totally an open episode for you guys. So if you have anything that you specifically want to talk about or bring up, you can go ahead and message me. We can either have a discussion about it, or if you have a question about something, want to get some insight on it. I think this is kind of remember those chat with the chat episodes we had a few months ago? We're kind of doing that again. I should have told you in advance to make this better, so it's kind of like a Q&A, but maybe we'll do like an official Q&A for like a 1-year celebration kind of thing next time. But while you guys are doing that and getting all your stuff together, I definitely am going to pull up some things that I want to talk about. And some of them involve some people that have previously been on the show. So I think that some of you guys will know who I'm talking about already. And just to kind of give another demonstration of how the system that we have royally screws over some really great people. But here it is right now. It's a simple image saying $1,111.10 due, and warning: a warrant has been issued for your arrest. So for those of you who don't know, Patrick Smith uploaded on his public account his warrant that was issued, a standing warrant, or bench warrant, for a traffic violation that he had penalized against him some time ago that he wound up never paying. And so now at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and read what he says. This is from 8 hours ago. He says, "I have hurt no one. I have damaged no property. I have not trespassed anywhere. I have created no victims. And yet, where I am the victim of threats of literal violence, quote, an actual crime, you continue to defend these evil men as heroes. The only explanation is that your lens on reality and morality has been knocked out of focus by falsehoods you were taught from birth." We talk about this all the time, the whole brainwashing, or some people call it the domestication. Victimless crimes are not crimes. Enforcing them is. We talked about this a little bit last week. So now, during the most financially strained time of my family's existence, I have to decide between keeping my family in my home and paying off the Blue Line Gang and the criminals they work for. Do not pretend your civilization is civilized. There is every bit gang rule by violence, protected by your belief in the supposed authority of men that never asked nor cared about your consent. Oh man. It is 100%, 100,000% not copacetic. Whenever I first read this, I have a lot of feelings about this kind of stuff. Oh, sorry. Ryan said in the chat, "I look forward to more of these live streams when we're all quarantined from the pandemic." Is the coronavirus still spreading or something? Well, I'll just continue with what I was going about, but I'll do some light research while I'm talking. Obviously this kind of stuff with that's happening to Patrick is the kind of stuff that we talk about all the time. And it's one thing to talk about it in hypotheticals, to say like, yes, the police will take your children away from you, or the police can, threaten you with prison or being thrown in a cage for nonviolent offenses. It's another thing to actually see it happen and have an example of it. And I think that's the whole point that he's posting this. He's not posting this to ask for your sympathy, really. He's not posting this to ask for. He even says in the comments he's not looking for financial help. He's not looking for, you know, people to give him money or anything like that. He's literally just using this as an opportunity to say that these things that we talk about happening to people actually happen to people. And this is not an anomaly. This is not some thing that only happens to 1% of 1% of the population. My best friend was thrown in a cage, and I had to bail him out for a bench warrant, right? For having the wrong color lenses on his lights on his vehicle. They had a slight purple tint to them because he thought it looked good. And so they gave him a ticket, and he said the correct thing, in my opinion. He said, "Screw you and your ticket. I'm not paying this." And then lo and behold, 2 years later, Home Slice gets thrown in a cage. They just in the most garbage of circumstances too. Just, hey, can we see your IDs? And you know me, I mean, I don't do anything. I don't break any laws because I don't want to go to jail. But well, you know, I don't officially break any laws. And but you know, I mean, he thought nothing of it either. And the next thing you know, he's getting put into the back of a car. And I was like, what is happening? You know, like, what is happening? Steven says perhaps we should help him out anyways. You know, if that's a conversation you want to have with him. But, you know, he made it pretty clear that, you know, he's not looking for people to he's using this as a teaching tool for people who may not understand. And I think this is good, especially since this is his personal profile too. This isn't, you know, just not government Patrick Smith. I mean, it's his profile, but he's using this as an opportunity to teach people who may not be familiar with the kind of stuff that he's talking about, or hear it from him or other people like me or any of you guys and not understand what's happening. And I mean, it's rough. It really is. You know, immediately people were, you know, offering to give him financial support and everything, but he's got it right here. It says, I'm not asking for money, guys. This is for victimless crime. I forgot specifically some traffic citation. I am using the letter to make an uncivilized society point. Thank you all for offering the help. You are badasses. So yeah, see, I mean, he's using this as and I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. Not that it happened to him, but I think him utilizing this as an opportunity to make a point is huge. I think it's huge. I think all of us could honestly be better at this. And then, you know, even beyond that specifically, you have the fact that, you know, and I touched on this a little bit before, but this happens to people all over all the time. It's happened to my friend. It's happened to Patrick here. You know, at least Patrick got the letter and knows about it. I mean, allegedly, my friend didn't know about it at all. So that makes it even worse in that particular situation. So, you know, the enforcement of nonviolent crimes, period, is unethical, but especially to the extent of which we enforce them. You know, I mean, it's almost, a minarchist would say something to the effect of like a fine or something like that is a much lower, you know, punishment than throwing someone in jail. You just got to pay the fine. But I think that that's really, you're just removing one of the steps. Most people who go to jail wind up having to pay some kind of fine, first off, usually. Second off, if someone isn't able to pay the fine, or can't pay the fine, or doesn't pay the fine, they go to jail. So it makes so basically when people are saying like, oh, well, if you have a fine, it avoids immediately having to do jail time, and it gives people to pay to, you know, for doing something wrong, which again, it's a non-violent crime, so they didn't do anything wrong. But even for like a violent crime, let's say you punch someone and you just get like $1,000 fine. That logic is broken fundamentally, because your whole justification for having the fine over jail time is that person doesn't deserve jail time for what they did, but they need some kind of punishment. So then you're saying that not paying the fine is a worse crime than assaulting someone. So in this particular case, right? You know, and especially if it's a nonviolent thing. If it's a nonviolent crime and you don't believe that someone should go to jail for that, so you put a fine there, but then you say not paying your fine is a crime worth putting you in jail, that's also a nonviolent, and it's not even an offense. So it's just you choosing not to. So you see how you just spiral into the rabbit hole, and then usually someone tries to break it by saying, yeah, well, we got to have the rule of law or something like that. So, and then it comes, you know, we could literally, I mean, heck, we could make this entire conversation about how something being legal does not make it ethical. And that's pretty much the basis of everything I do. Everything that we do here at Liberty After Dark is built off of the idea that just because it's legal doesn't mean it's ethical. Okay? The Constitution is a legally binding document. It doesn't mean it's right. You know, the state requiring a marriage certificate to, you know, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for here? To respect people's, you know, living together as spouses, their whole involvement in that is illegitimate. It's unethical. Just because you have a marriage license doesn't automatically make your marriage legitimate. Just because you don't doesn't make it illegitimate. You know, licensing as a whole, you know, gating your liberties behind pieces of paper that you have to buy. Like a fishing license. To go fish in a pond, you have to have a frigging fishing license. Like, I get it. We don't want people overfishing. Okay, but what you do with that is you teach people that overfishing is bad. You don't say, where's your piece of paper? You didn't pay your $18.50 for your Texas fishing license? Looks like you're going to jail. I mean, they give you a fine. If a warden finds you without a fishing license, they're supposed to give you a fine. But if you don't pay the fine, guess what happens? You go to jail. So they're saying you go to jail. And if we've done this a million times, but every time someone says, well, just pay the fine, they're saying, pay us money so we don't murder you. That's my favorite thing ever. I swear it's my favorite thing ever. And not because I like it. I hate it. I cannot stand it. It is so annoying. But the fact that people don't understand that is the equivalent thing blows my mind. Pay the fine or don't go to or you go to jail is the same as pay the fine or I murder you. There is no difference. Because if you resist going to jail because you don't feel like you gotta go to jail, like you don't feel like you deserve to go to jail, they murder you. That's what this is. Celeste says, gotta pay $300 plus to be able to defend yourself without worrying as much about going to jail. Exactly, right? I mean, this is the kind of things that gotta pay the crown. Exactly. Mary brings it up right here. There's so many examples that I could give of your liberties being gated behind fines. And this is an even worse atrocity in my opinion. Like the whole nonviolent crimes thing, like that sucks. Okay, that really does. I don't want to undersell the fact that how terrible that is. But what's even worse than that is taking something that in no circumstance could ever possibly be a crime and then gating it, not even making the activity illegal, making it illegal until you pay a certain amount. It's like a suppressor. Getting a tax stamp for a suppressor is ridiculous. It's not designed to say like, oh, suppressors are bad, so we gotta make it harder for people. No, it's a money collection thing. If they really thought that suppressors are bad and we gotta stop bad people from getting them, they do things like that, which are still unethical, but you know, background checks, and they'd keep the waiting period and all that stuff. But saying like we're gonna throw this giant money fine on suppressors that doesn't change anything. That just means only in your imaginary world rich bad people can get them. Cool, great, I guess. And you know, you don't have to be rich. I know plenty of people who are around my income level who have suppressors, but you know, if if you're trying to get one for whatever reason, and you're of a lower income, your freedom has been gated behind a dollar amount. That's despicable, okay? And it's not like it's been gated because you can't afford the suppressor. Pretty much anybody can afford a suppressor. The tax stamp, in almost every case, costs more than the dang thing. Unless you've got one that's really fancy. And I mean really, really fancy. So, ah, man, it's gross. Criminals always go through background checks to get guns, etc. Yeah. Yeah, none of that stops any of these things. I'm not suggesting that, nor am I saying that they're good things. I think it's all unethical to begin with. But yeah, the idea that you would then gate that behind some kind of tax stamp is just rubbing salt in the wound, really. Like you have to completely throw out any justification that you might have given in the realm of, oh, well, I'm doing this to protect, for public safety reasons. All of that, just ball it up, just throw it right out the window. It's gone. The second that you say, like, and we got to do, I don't even remember how much it is, like a $500, $300, $400, whatever it is. Some stupid dollar amount for the tax stamp. I haven't looked at the price in a while, but I know it's not cheap. It's in the multiple hundreds of dollars. And just to have, for some people, they just want it so that they don't have to wear hearing protection and not hurt their ears. Like, most people who own a suppressor are not using it for, like, tactical assassinations or, like, so that they can... So many people have misconceptions about how the things work to begin with, which is just... But, even then, like, I would love to see the amount of use cases where one is used to hurt somebody versus how many of them exist, and then just look at firearms used to hurt somebody and how many they exist, and just see how vast the difference is between the two things. Just being honest, like, most people who want to get the job done aren't going out and buying suppressors. God, and it's ridiculous. It really is. Are we doing another Grinds My Gears episode? It kind of feels like it, because, I started talking about these things, and again, I do appreciate Patrick talking about what has happened to him, because again, I feel like this is a great opportunity to teach normies, which I'm a huge fan of. And I'm not using normie in like a derogative term. I think almost, we exist as radicals in a space of normal people. I think that's a fair assessment. Okay. And normal being operative there, as in they exist within a very homogenous mindset, and we are outside of that. So do I think that we are correct? Yes, but we are radical to the norm, and I don't think that that's a bad thing. But yeah, I mean, we talked about this a little bit last episode too, with the whole speeding thing. How is speeding an illegitimate? It's a nonviolent crime, and the fact that you can be punished for that is absolutely atrocious. Absolutely atrocious. It's just part of the existence of the state. It has to collect revenue, and if it's going to extort revenue through income taxes, I don't think it's... I think if you're going to have an income tax at all, if you're going to have any extortion of funds from people at all, you have set the pretense for there to be essentially unlimited extortion of the populace. From there, the sky's the limit, right? Like, once you say, like, we can take some of their money without their consent, it can go as deep as you want, because you can come up with any justification. If your initial statement is that you can't, if your initial statement is that extorting funds without people's consent, which is part of extortion, is illegitimate or is unethical, then none of this can happen. But that's not part of their modus operandi, as one might say. Liberty Late Night says, I'm not against street racing, I'm against street crashing. Exactly. It's not a crime until you Man, my brain shut down. It's not a crime until you violate the nap. So in this case, the street crashing is if you damage someone's property. Which, you know, assuming we're in Capistan or whatever, whoever owns that road or the light pole that you just knocked over, yeah, they're gonna be pretty pissed. Yeah, and you'll owe them restitutions, whatever you agree to. In some cases, whatever you don't agree to. Most of the time, it comes down to, I think a lot of times it'll come down to simply hashing out some way to make up for what happened. But yeah, I mean, we talked about the brainwashing a little bit. This is one of the hardest parts for people, right? Is when they see things that they don't like or don't want to have happening, for them to kind of step back and say, like, I may not be okay with this, but, you know, we've got to accept the fact that it's not our place, right? I'm a really big proponent of the idea that we got to know our place in a lot of these discussions. And a lot of times, I think a lot of people step over where their place is in other people's lives. And not just statists either. I think a lot of libertarians too can, and I use libertarians in the broad libertarian sense of including minarchists who are statists, yes, but you know, a lot of these people can hold on to that brainwashing that they had when they were statists, because almost every single one of us was a statist at some point. Almost every single one of us. I personally don't know of anybody who was raised voluntarist or anarchist of any form, because that is not the norm. But I think that we all harbor a little bit of that in us still to this day. And I try really hard to be very cognizant of when it happens. But, you know, I was a statist once. Not very long ago either. Just a few years. I mean, I was a minarchist up until, I guess it's been about a year and some change now. Maybe a little bit over a year. That I have... Actually, no, it's been less than a year. Actually, yeah, it's been less than a year since I've been an anarchist. So, yeah, but I was a constitutionalist, which is pretty statist. And before that, I was just a regular old Republican neocon. So it's really easy to look with the lens that we have now and see it just through all of the bullshit. It's so easy. It doesn't take some deep dissection of like how everything works. You kind of already intuitively know that, but when you look back, like I try to put myself in the position of how I was back then. Like when I was pro-wall, there was a time where anarchist open borders over here was pro-wall. Like that's how much people can change. Yeah. That's how much people can change. And that's, you know, you have to be really cognizant of when those things come back. You really do. And I think that's a trap that a lot of minarchists get caught in. Is that they say like, okay, well, these XYZ thing is illegitimate and should be gone, but like we still need a little bit of this thing. Most of that is a fear of change, I think, still. Some of it's pragmatism, which we all know how I feel about pragmatism. I haven't had a pragmatism tirade in a few months, but I'm not a big fan, if you're not aware, and I think that if you're gonna have an excuse as to why you are a minarchist, pragmatism is probably the best of the excuses. Sorry, I was looking for some terms there. And I definitely think that that's the best excuse you have, but it's so bad excuse. Oh, look at this. You guys basically made the same comment. It gives me hope to see other people that have seen the light. And then Mary said, it gives me hope. If I saw the light, others can and others will. Myself included. Yeah, so all of us, right? Pretty much all of us. Somebody, something came around, smacked you across the head, and was like, "You're a statist, and you need to stop it." Some of us, it was more gradual than that. I think I was slowly indoctrinated into anarchy. And I think, well, I was introduced before any libertarianism. It was like ANCAP, like immediately. And I didn't really, no, I was not. No. But I liked some of what they were saying, right? Some of it really resonated with me. Like they were like, taxation is theft. And I was like, I mean, it kind of is, you know? And that's kind of the joke, right? It's like, why do we push taxation as theft so hard? Because if you can ethically make the connection that taxation is taking someone's resources without their consent, and that's wrong because it violates their right to property, then you can get everything else that we believe in off of that. That is the quintessential. Just put a pin in it. Just that right there. If you can do that, you can do any of this. Defense spending, the whole selectively pro-life thing, those were the first cracks in the wall. Yeah, defense spending, that is one for a lot of people. But I think it's easier for people to brush that off. Like, it's almost like a world that they don't exist in. You know, you kind of have to want to understand what's going on there. I think what's really relevant to a lot of people is the world that they're living in now. In the sense that, like, if it directly affects them, it's a lot easier for them to get a window into it. Now, I'm not saying that defense spending doesn't directly affect people, but it has less of an impact than income tax, or it has less of an impact than property tax, or staying on property, something like, what's it called? Civil asset forfeiture. Things like that are all great examples of the government just giving you the goods, you know, just really ringing you for all you're worth. I had a great conversation with someone a while ago, specifically about the estate tax. And it was, they basically were just appalled by the fact that I didn't believe that you should be taking a dead man's money or woman's money. And it was a pretty straightforward conversation, honestly. Nobody was really butthurt, but they were obviously completely flabbergasted by the idea that I thought the estate tax was one of the most heinous taxes. If you put them on a tier list, I think it's up there as like one of the worst, most illegitimate, just zero basis in any kind of possible justification. Because if you break down the estate tax, like, what is the estate tax really? Okay, whenever you die, it basically, we're going to simplify it, but whenever you die, the government is entitled to a certain amount of your money. Okay, so granted, this is money that you already had, that they already taxed you on. Okay, so this is double taxing that income. In some cases, triple taxing, depending on what this person is involved in. But yeah, this income is being double taxed at the minimum, and their justification is, well, whatever they had done, this is like their final contribution back to the society that helped to, you know, build them, basically. And if there was ever a more broken logic, like, I would prefer it if someone just came up to me and was like, yeah, we just need the estate tax to fund the government because, you know, we don't bring in enough revenue, so we needed a way to generate revenue, and we said we'd take it from dead people. Like, that, to me, that is a fairer, like, I still hate it. I hate it so much, but it's an argument that's like, you can actually argue that. Like, I would think you're a bad person, but I think you're a bad person if you make things up anyways. So Celeste says, I was a full-on statist when I was like, hey, wait a second, how are we fiscally conservative except with this defense spending, and everything the government touches turns to crap? Why do I trust them with my safety? That was before I heard the magic words taxation is theft. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think if you haven't realized yet that Republicans are not fiscally conservative, you're lying to yourself. That's why I may have to go deal with my dog in a second. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go do that. Why don't we just go ahead and put a pin on this real quick? I'm gonna bring back up the countdown screen, and then you guys just give me a minute, and then I'll be right back, and then we'll be good to go. So this is a great time to take a bathroom break or go get some water. We'll just do like a quick we'll do like 3 minutes, and then we'll be right back. All right, just kidding. We're back early. Sorry about that, guys. I'm sure you heard it. It like booms through the whole house. But my dog decided that he was gonna let the people across the street know that he wasn't very happy with them for whatever reason. I don't think he's really looking for a reason though. So he makes his own reason when it comes to these sorts of things. Oh, but where was I? Man, trying to get back on track here. That was before I heard the words taxation was step. Celeste says, and now I'm an anarchist. That was really the first step on the road. Yeah, I think my first step was, it's just such like a, I guess it's actually kind of common, but I think the first step for me was like cannabis. Because, even when I was a teenager, I never really had a lot of access to it. I was never like a pothead or anything like that. But I always knew, like, from the beginning, the fact that people were going to jail over this stuff was just ridiculous. And that was a really big Republican talking point, especially back then. Now, not really. I mean, they occasionally it comes up and they just naturally vote against it because that's what they've done. There are some people who have switched sides on that. But overall, I think that was really what did it for me. Cannabis was what pushed me over the edge. And it sort of developed into, okay, well, if this is okay, then these other things must be okay. Whatever it might be, whether it's heroin, meth, these substances, alcohol, things like that. Like these by extension pretty much have to be okay if you're going to be ethically consistent. And this is really what I started caring about, things like ethics, the fundamental laws by which we govern ourselves. And this is kind of when I learned about Kant and the categorical imperative. And the more and more I kind of put down the barriers that I had built up and started just naturally applying all of these things, the more it was kind of like doors being unlocked. I had all the keys the whole time, most of the time anyways. I just needed someone to show me where the lock was, or which key to use, maybe, is a better analogy. It's always fun, though, kind of looking back. It's always fun. There's so much depth that goes into this. Like, if you really dive into it, like, most people don't do this, but I know quite a few of you who listen to this show particularly do. And it's something that we enjoy, is really diving deep into these ideas. Really taking a step in and instead of taking a step back and getting into the nitty-gritty about how these systems work, why these things are the way they are, what are rights, what is the NAP, how do they work, why do they work the way they work, the philosophy behind it. And these are things that I think most people don't do. Like, I get that. Like, plenty of voluntarists don't do that. Like, there's a very simple, but I can't really think of someone who, like, unless you're a highly religious person, like someone like Ben Shapiro, maybe. I think Ben Shapiro thinks about ethics. I think he thinks about philosophical implications of some of the things he talks about. But I think his particular lens at viewing the world makes it to where his modified traditional conservatism, I guess, he's not really a neocon, but yeah, whatever. I mean, his particular brand of conservatism is still based in those traditional roots, like the upholding of traditional values, the persistence of these ideas throughout Western culture. And I'm not saying these things are inherently bad, but I think a lot of times they're overemphasized. And that was something I had to drop a lot too. I was not a cultural supremacist, but I kind of got, I've talked about this a little bit in the past as well, but I think the wave that built up to modern, like, white nationalism and this modern, whatever you want to call them, Nazis or alt-right, if that's still a term that people use, but this modern, white nationalist movement, I think the roots of that go way back, years and years and years back, to just concerns over immigration. And it's like, well, no duh, right? Like, no duh, that's where all these concerns come from. But even during, like, the Bush and Obama administrations, whenever illegal immigration was at its peak, this is really when these movements started having their foundations laid. And now my other dog wants to come in the door, so give me 2 seconds. Sorry about that. The show mascot is here now. Trip is laying on my yoga mat, which I use for push-ups and sit-ups and stuff like that, because I don't do yoga. But yeah, it's, where was I? Yeah, I mean, this is, it's not really like a hot take. I think plenty of people see this, but I wonder how many people have actually sat down and said, like, where did this come from? And I think a lot of the sentiments that you see today are just the same as the sentiments on the left. if you haven't noticed this yet for some reason, I'll go ahead and give you my theory, but I think this is pretty much proven. Everything that exists today is just a hyperbolic caricature of how it was 20 years ago. If you look at the politics in 2000 and you look at the politics in 2020, they are simply hyperbolic caricatures of one another. Do Republicans are like the most radical, insane Republicans of 2000 are the normal Republican of 2020. Not in the good way either. And the most insane fringe Democrats in 2000, the people who would be called crazy commies on the spot by their own party, are now literally so embedded in the party that they are running for president. I don't really know how to. That's such a crazy thing to think about. Like, I don't even know how to process that almost. It's like, you know, everybody says that the internet has brought out this almost disingenuous nature in people. It allows people to kind of exist in a falsity, in like a hyper exaggerated, you know, hyperbolic existence, basically, where everything's a contest, or everything's an attempt to generate clout, as the kids say these days, or everything is some sort of, it's got to be some sort of like, how is this going to make me Instagram, Facebook famous? How am I going to get more likes? How is this going to reach as many people as possible? How are they going to know that this meme is mine so they can come back and like my page? You know, slight jab at the meme lords. I think these are all just examples of how politics mirrors the culture of the society. It really does. I think that's what I like most about ethics, is that ethics doesn't care about the culture of the society. You know, the ethics of voluntarism don't care what the modern landscape of society looks like. It just does not care. Could not give any fewer craps about how society looks at it. It exists because it is a system of truths. And you can debate those, right? You can debate the aspects of ethics, that whether or not they are truths. And I think there's a lot of not only enjoyment, but learning to be gotten out of that. But you can't simply look at society and say like, oh, well, ethics are just a mirroring of the society. I don't think there's any. I think you could say that the society mirrors it's or the politics or something like that, or morality. Even you could even say morality mirrors the fabric of the society. But I don't think you can make the argument that the ethics do. What ethics are upheld, certainly, because, you know, without getting too contrived here on this random tangent, I think too many people don't understand the fact that you can build morality from ethics, but ethics is not morality. Morality is customizable. When people say morality is ambiguous, there is no right and wrong, there is a certain amount of truth to that. You get to make your own morality. Ethics are laws. Ethics are truths. These are not feelings. This is not, I don't like say you are morally against people burning the Bible. Okay, you think it is immoral for them to do so. Whatever. We're just making an example here. It could be anything. Or the flag, okay? I mean, I think more people here resonate with the Bible thing. But, you know, to say that then, well, I don't like this, therefore it should be wrong, is a case out of morals. You think it's morally wrong. There's no argument as to what about it deserves some kind of punishment besides the fact that you don't like it. That's an argument from morality. An argument from ethics would be something like, oh, he set me on fire for reading the Bible. That is an argument from ethics, because you are attacking that person. And the argument isn't, well, that attacking that person, I don't like it. The argument is based off of a set of truths that we can gain by perceiving the world around us. That's again, I've said this like twice today. It's the best thing about voluntarism. You can witness what voluntarism would look like by watching everyday exchanges. Now, most of them have an undertone of statism to them. Whether you realize it or not, in a lot of cases, there's quite a large overtone of statism to them. Just by the nature of existing in a society that is statist. But whenever you step back and you look at how human interaction happens in its bubble, how individuals interact with each other, how deals are made, if you get rid of all of the statism involved in most transactions and stuff like that, if you just look at the mechanics of it, it's all entirely compliant with voluntarism. It's all entirely compliant with good ethics. It's all entirely compliant with the idea that we are independent agents and deserve liberties. And this all comes full circle. Once you've figured these things out, we talk about how taxation is theft is a great place to start. But literally any of the core principles of voluntarism, or even anarcho-capitalism, if you prefer that particular branch, there is literally, from one of those points, everything else becomes available. It's like the doors we talked about. Once one door opens, it's just getting to the next one at that point. The hardest place to be is in the very beginning. But that's anything, right? Like, that's life. The hardest place to be is at the very beginning, the start of the journey. Because that's what this is, right? Like, we're not at I hope no one feels like they're at the destination. That's the last thing that I want, is for people to feel like they've made it. Not because you haven't made it, quote unquote. Not because you don't deserve to, congratulate yourself for how far you've come. I think that's important. But I think understanding the fact that we all still have so much more growing to do. It's very pertinent. Ever more so as the society around us is not receptive to what we currently do. To no fault of our own. And by no means should anybody feel like they're not, again, I've said this a couple of times. Don't feel like you aren't doing enough, or you should be doing more, or you aren't doing your part. I think if you can step back and say, I have more growing to do, I should care about these things, I should want to be better than I am today, and I'll make steps to that, you're doing your part to make the world a better, freer place. And I think that gets overlooked. I really do. Again, this kind of goes back to the whole hyperbolic, sensationalized society that we live in today, is that if you're not hosting a podcast, or have thousands of followers, or are making memes that get the reach of tens of thousands of people, or are, getting on the news by carrying guns on school campuses or whatever, like, you're not doing your part, okay? But that's so not true. All of these things that are this show, all of this, these are just vehicles to get people to spread awareness, to help each other grow. They're tools. They're not the end result. They're not the end goal. Liberty After Dark is not the end goal for me. Even a free society isn't the end goal for me. Because once we have Ancapistan, we got plenty of things we need to work on after that. We have generations of parenting that has to get changed. We have an entire educational system that all of it fundamentally is based off of statist ideologies. That all has to get changed. And that's not easy things to do. It will require debate. It will require very smart people making very big decisions that can impact tons of people's lives. So I don't think we should ever see like that we've already made it, or that we have to achieve some big goal to make it. If you're a parent, simply educating your children is probably a bigger impact than this show will ever have. Honestly. I mean, not to just beat myself up or whatever, but legitimately, I think that if every person that's here is a parent and raises their children to be successful voluntarists, I think you will probably have made a bigger impact than this show ever will, because those children that you raise will most likely go on to have their own children, and if they continue to live as voluntarists, which hopefully they will, because most children do continue to live as in the political environment that they did as children, particularly if the political environment is logically and ethically true, and yeah. So I think that over time you will have made a more lasting impact than I will. I just hope that I can be a piece of that journey. That's really, I just want to help be a part of it. This is not the end goal. Not the end goal in the slightest. But yeah. I think that's pretty much all I've got. Like I said, this is kind of an open forum episode. So if you guys have anything you want to talk about, now's a good time to bring it up. We're about an hour through. Yeah, just about an hour through the main body of the show. We had a small break in the middle. But yeah, otherwise I think I've said pretty much everything I wanted to say today. Again, I didn't have any big prepared idea to talk about this time. We will have some stuff to talk about next episode for sure. I have so much editing I've got to do though. Jeez. So the less long that this show goes on, the more editing I can get done tonight. But that's not saying that I want to leave. I'm just, if you like listening to the podcast, that's something to consider. Night Mary says, "You're a part of our teaching. Davey loves watching your show." That's David. Yeah, I mean, and that's great. I really do. I think I don't really target. Everybody's got an audience, right? And I don't really target the Davids, but if people his age enjoy the show, I have to tell YouTube that this content isn't for children. I don't have to restrict it to 18 and up though, because there's nothing on here that requires it to be restricted above 18 years old. So what it'll do is, if somehow children find my content, I would highly encourage, if you are someone who is under the age of, I'd honestly say 15 or 16, and, try talking to, you don't even have to, bring it up to your parents. Why not? Why not? I would love to get an email from some angry parent about how I'm corrupting their child. Go ahead. Yeah, those are some woke kids. No joke, right? I encourage you to build some kind of conversation about it. And, I get how it is being young. I'm sure if there's any kids out there watching this right now, it'd really blow my mind. I don't think there are, but if there are, you're building a good foundation. How about that? I'll say that much. But especially if you're the child of a anarchist or even minarchists or voluntarists, these are great things to talk to them about, just to learn more for you. And then you can go make all the kids at school woke. Oh man. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I've got. My dog is being a little needy, but he's just looking at me weird. Cool. I think that's it though. I think this is pretty good. Again, sorry for not making a post very promptly about the episode. That was definitely my bad. I've been doing a lot of work in the shop today. I did some welding, burned the crap out of my finger, worked on the bike. My motorcycle's running under its own power now, so that's good. The wheels spin, gears change, all that. So that's amazing. I was so happy when that happened. God, I've been working on this thing for so long. But yeah, if you guys want to see updates on stuff like that, you can follow me on Instagram. I don't even remember what my Instagram tag is, but I post all the stuff that I do that's like vehicle or welding or stuff like that, and I don't really post any memes there. So here, let me pull it up real quick. I literally use it so rarely that I figured I barely it's a G_divergence, DIVERGENCE. Yeah, I post dogs and stuff that I cook, and welding and motorcycles and parts and cars and weightlifting and just normal social media stuff instead of just a wall of memes and politics like Facebook. Someone before I go, someone brought up to me that they were like, dude, you don't even like social media on Facebook. You just post memes and politics. There's nothing else. Memes and ethics, or memes, whatever. If you want to call it politics, you can call it that. But all you do is post memes and talk about, how the government sucks. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't social media on Facebook. Instagram is where I social media, and I really don't use it a lot. Every once in a while, I'll be like, oh, I'll post this on Instagram. Why not? But yeah. And GIFs. Yes, I post lots of GIFs. So you'll get everything from cat GIFs all the way to the state doing some really awful things on my Facebook page. You will get none of that really on Instagram. I don't think I've posted a single anarchist libertarian thing on there, just because I don't use it for that. So if you want to go over there and see that, there you go. It's available for you. But since we're doing social media plugs, this Dr. Pepper has been trying to come up all episode and it finally lost it. Sorry about that. But since we're doing social media plugs, if you enjoyed the show, please go ahead and check out the Facebook page. The Facebook also has a community group, Liberty After Dark community group, that I haven't really been using lately. But in the future, maybe I'll post a poll. Maybe I'll ask you guys what you want to do for an episode. I'll probably honestly be doing that pretty soon because I'm running out of episode ideas. Been doing this for a year, okay? I'm running out of topics. Sound's working, Kevin. What are you talking about, dog? Everybody else can hear me. Oh, he's just messing with me. Okay, I got you. You got me, dog. Man, in the middle of my outro too. All right. I'm gonna keep going. We got a community group, post polls, all that great stuff there. If you guys are feeling especially generous today, we are still trying to break even on the Patreon. Don't feel obligated by any means, but I did add a little bit to the total amount to start breaking even by doing all this music and stuff like that, and some of the nicer things that you've seen on the live stream now. I had to pay a little bit of money for a subscription for that. Not a big deal. Just means we have to add a little bit to the whole break monthly even. So yeah, that's it. Yeah, so that's Patreon at Liberty After Dark if you guys are interested in that. Simply $1 a month gets us like a 30th of the way there or something like that, which is great. Can't ask for anything more from you. Won't ask for anything more. Other than that, I think that's it. The email isn't working. Don't email me. Just message the Facebook page. Go ahead, and if you guys have any suggestions for any shows you want, message the Facebook page. Don't message me. I'll lose it in the swath of Facebook messages. I'm in like 5 groups. Okay, I get way too many messages on Facebook. Email or message the Liberty After Dark Facebook page. There, I will be able to keep all of the stuff that you guys send me. I can answer any specific questions you guys have. If you guys want to just like try hooking me up with some guests or something, that's a great place to do that. But yeah. So, also, I'm still accepting if any of you guys have an example of some liberty that's been going on in your lives. I'll take them over there too, since we don't do the email anymore. So cool. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, Facebook. I plugged my Instagram before that. My personal Instagram, so I'm sure I'll get a couple of notifications. Really sorry about the lack of podcasts going out there. I know some people really like to listen to this show as a podcast. I am going to try to get as much editing done. I'm gonna have, not this last episode, but the episode before that, I will have that out tonight. That will be out in an hour, hopefully. It won't be like at every podcast distributor, but it'll be posted. It'll be uploading in an hour. The other one might take a little bit more time. That was like 2 hours, I think, or an hour and 45 minutes that I have to edit through. So that one's, I've still got a lot of work to do on that one. But I will try to have it done before Monday night. How about that? We'll say that. We will see if any of this happens. I appreciate you guys. Everybody who's here is an amazing human being and deserves nothing but amazing things to happen to them through life. Make sure you guys have an awesome rest of your day. And I think that's it. You guys take it easy.